It's time for our next speaker, Ms. Kiran Bedi. Honorable Kiran Bedi is an Indian politician, retired police officer, social activist, and former tennis player who was the 24th Lieutenant Governor of Puducherry. She holds the distinction of being India's first and highest ranking female police officer with more than 35 years of experience in reformative policing and prison management. In her youth, she was also a national and an Asian tennis champion. She has been a leading figure in the nationwide India Against Corruption movement. Her achievements are truly remarkable. Also, I would like to introduce you to our moderator, Ms. Shweta Punj, a senior journalist, a television host, and a social entrepreneur. She has worked for more than a decade in India and the US reporting on business and policy. She's also the co-founder of the New Delhi-based research think tank, the Whypoll Foundation. Now, I would like to pass over to Ms. Shweta Punj to take ahead the session with Ma'am Kiran Bedi.
Thank you very much, Yagya. It's always a pleasure to be speaking with Dr. Bedi. I am a big fan of hers. I'm a big fan of hers. And when I was asked to moderate this discussion, I was very, very excited. And we are today speaking to a very young audience, young minds. So much. So we are hoping to give you some food for thought and take away some inspiration and food for thought from you all. So you, of course, introduced Dr. Bedi, phenomenally. But personally, for me, I feel that, uh, adjectives are not enough to describe the person she is. And one of the things that really stands out when you meet her is her enthusiasm and her energy and her passion. She could beat you all at it, which is really amazing, and it's so inspiring. And her constant drive for perfection in whatever she does. And I think these are the lessons that I personally have learned from her. And I'm hoping that through this conversation, we'll be able to bring those aspects out. Dr. Bedi, a delight, an absolute pleasure to be talking to you today. I want to, I think you're on mute. Are you? Yeah, you have to unmute yourself.
Yes. Yep. Hi.
Thank you so much, and lovely to be speaking to you on this platform. I want to begin by asking you, I was thinking, how we should start our conversation. Everybody knows you as the first woman IPS officer, the Lieutenant Governor of Puducherry, but we know that you wanted to be a tennis player at one point. So tell us about that, and tell us about that period of your life when you wanted to be a tennis player, you almost made it, and then something happened and you could not represent India. We want to go back to that phase of your life, and what are the lessons that you learned from there? You were probably as old as the audiences here today at that time.
Shweta, I started to play tennis from the age of 9, and tennis was a sports family, a family sport. My father was also a ranked player in India. And tennis, therefore, was bread and butter. It was everything. It's either books or tennis. Yes, that's a fact that when I became a national tennis champion at the age of 16, you get a direct entry into the Wimbledon at that time. I was denied because I didn't have the political clout. And I was a tier 2 city, Amritsar. It was not Calcutta, Madras, Bombay, where the associations were very, very powerful. My Amritsar association was dependent on votes from others. So he sacrificed me. He didn't send me to the Wimbledon. And it was a big setback because I was moving towards being an international player. And but it was a turning point. I got the lesson that I will not do anything which makes me dependent on selection. I will stand on my merit and get selected on merit, so that I cannot be denied a position. And that's what happened. So I decided to focus alongside tennis a lot on academics. So it actually made me excel in studies as well. Sports continued because sports was now family sport, and it was very, very learning. So that's how it changed.
I asked this question just so everybody knows that there was a big setback that you faced. you were going to become an international tennis player. That's something that she was and continues to be very passionate about. And that was a setback that she faced, and she turned it around in a very constructive manner. Uh, Moving on to your posting at Tihar, which was again considered a punishment posting, and nobody wanted to be a superintendent at the hard jail, but you turned that around. So I want you to use this as an opportunity to tell us about the guiding principles in your life. On one, how did you turn around that punishment posting? How did you approach that position that was being given to you, and what have been your guiding principles as you've navigated different challenging situations in your life?
For me, Tihar was not a punishing posting for me. It was for people, not for me.
Right.
Because it had 10,000 people inside. 10,000 people to be looked after. And maybe dry cleaned. Maybe dry cleaned. And I found a very higher purpose in that assignment. I looked at the purpose, and the purpose was, let everybody go out from here with the preparation not to come back, which means it was serving both policing and prisons. Policing, that he does not commit a crime again. And prisons, that it dry cleans within, which it reforms them. So I looked at the higher purpose of that posting. For me, any posting which has people is not punishment, because then that's what you're for. So therefore, for me, Tihar actually became another turning point, because it gave me an opportunity which had no rules. It had no written rules. Imagine, we were governed by prison manual. It had no standard operating procedures. So I was not bound. I could lay down my own policies. And one line which turned around in the manual, it said, the Inspector General is the policy maker of the prison. It was British written manual. It changed things now. And that line made me make NGOs enter. It made me bring education. It made me bring meditation. It made me bring all festivals. It made me bring skills development. It made a township, because there was no binding me. I included the media. The media was allowed to come, but not to glorify, but to see the state of affairs, to act as a pressure on judiciary to expedite trials. So for me, it was a turning point to convert it into a reform institution, and it worked.
Tell us a little bit about the challenges that you faced during that time in terms of getting people onto your side, convincing them about your vision. I'm sure everybody did not see your vision almost immediately. There was work that you did, and they probably had to work around situations and circumstances. Just tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, from day one, the message to the rank and file was that it's a no nonsense for me. For me, this is going to be my destination, and I'm going to respect it and love it. No violence in the prison, no violence, no abusive behavior, no drugs, only education and correction. So the message was, violence will not get violence. If the prisoner is violent to you as a prison officer, you will not deal it with violence. Otherwise, you join him, you stay inside the prison. You will not deal violence with violence. So the prison officials asked me and said, but ma'am, we have no protection. Our houses are unprotected. If you don't deal it, we will get hit. I said, no, you won't. We will create protective systems. So first thing I did was isolated all the hardcore prisoners from mainstream prison to hardcore prison separately. So I segregated hardcore gangsters from main prison, who were then already with them. They were in fact creating the whole networks for them. So first hard decision I took was to separate gangsters from main prison. And they threatened me. They took me to the court, violating of human rights. And I won it in the court. I think that was a turning point, when I stood by my prison officials saying, you shall not commit violence over violence. And then they said, gangsters? I said, no problem. They will be separated. And nobody could dare touch a gangster there. Nobody dared. But we said, yes, we will. At night, overnight, we moved about 40 gangsters into a separate, isolated prison with extra security on them, one to a cell, one to a cell, and then one to a cell because they were not taking bails. It was very secure for them to create kidnapping and extortions from inside. Moment I separated them, the prison was no more a hub of continuing kidnappings, extortions, and organized rackets. Kidnappings from inside the prison fell because I checked with the police. I checked with the crime branch of the police. They said now there are no more calls, no more conspiracies, because I'd separated every gangster. But do you know what? Every gangster got a counselor and a teacher so that he also gets an opportunity to turn around. I was told they were continuing to stay in the prison because it acted as a very good shelter for them to continue their crime from inside the prison. Now, the problem is if they stay, they are isolated inside the prison. And if they go out, they're caught by the police and they may die in an encounter because they were all key gangsters. So that was a turning point. Now they were in a dilemma. Prison was no more safe even for them, but it became safer for my prison officials. That was when I lived up to it, saying, you tell me the problem, I give you the solution. But they never thought an IG would dare to touch a gangster. Because when you touch a gangster inside, your family outside. And then they said, ma'am, your daughter and your family will get threatened. I said, when they do, I'll take care of that. But I will not allow gangsters to run the prison. It was the Inspector General and prison officials who will run. So when I took that bull by the horns, that was the turning point. And still is. Now Tihar has a separate prison for our gangsters. Earlier, they did not have a separate. Gangsters of all kinds were part of the main prison. And you know, they had malchias and they had ice, they had people, they were like servitudes. They were servants and they were all increasing in the gang inside the prison. Can you believe it? Economic crime was thriving inside the prison. And nobody dare, on the contrary, they were like the lords. And when I touched, you know what? One prisoner who would not move out, we had to literally tie him up with a bed, with a cot to bring him out. He would not, he was so violent.
How did they take to a woman police officer giving command, because the fact is, and you were working with gangsters, you're working with people who are not following the law. How did you, what was their reaction? Did they even imagine that, okay, Dr. Bedi means business and she's not going to, I'm sure there were times when they probably made you feel that, we're not going to listen to you no matter what you do. Did you feel like that ever?
Shweta, I opened my account from day one in the prison. I did not lose a single day, but I want to tell you, I never walked in uniform and I never walked with guards. I sent the message. I know I am secure. It's you who are insecure if you misbehave. I never walked with guards and I did not put on my uniform. I walked with the same dress I'm wearing, the same Pathan suit, but I used to wear tennis shoes because I used to walk and walk and walk every day in the prison for hours together. I went barrack to barrack, cell to cell, basically letting them know that you are here to not come back. Therefore, take all the opportunities I'm going to give you. I was very firm and I was very stern. But in the evening, we all prayed together. See, I was bringing the carrot and the stick, the spiritual hand and the hand of stiffness and mastery. So I found it was both hot and cold at the same time, tough and soft at the same time, mother and a headmaster at the same time. And they got the message. I did not lose a single day. From the day I was posted, next morning, 9 o'clock, I was walking my prisons every day and no guard, nothing. I said, no, I must tell the message. I'm in charge, not you. I'm in charge and I know what to do with you. You dare come, you dare misbehave, you go inside for life. Not a single incident happened. On the contrary, they used to pray with me, meditate with me, study with me, celebrate with me, Christmas, Diwali, Holi, because we brought them to that situation where they became simple human beings. softened.
So, ma'am,
And it became an ashram. That is when they start to call it, it's an ashram. That's when they tamed it, that it's not a Tihar prison. Ma'am, it's a Tihar ashram. They gave the name.
So, ma'am, I would think that you evolved your own leadership style. There were no, there were no prototypes for you to follow, because there was no woman who had. The fact is that there are very unique challenges that women face vis-a-vis men, and there were no. There were no women who had done this role before. So you devised your own leadership style, your own personality style, which you believed in, and you went ahead with it. I'm asking this question because there's so many young women out there who will go out and try and make a place for themselves under the sun. I want you to talk a little bit about that. As you decided to be a firm leader, as you decided from day one that I will not take nonsense, I will assert myself. Uh, how how did you go about it in your mind? As in, what's the thought process that you approached this this assignment or several other assignments? I mean, how did you evolve your leadership style, which has become so iconic now, and it's an inspiration for so many women out there?
Shweta, I entered the prison with 20 years of policing experience. I'm a 1972 batch. I went to Tihar in 1993. I had leadership policing experience prior to that. And my policing experience was all exactly this, correctional. It was always community oriented. It was correctional, and it was by the rule of law. I spared nobody. Nobody was spared. Everybody is equal before the law. So many people who were inside the prison also were sent by me as a deputy commissioner of West Delhi. And they knew who I was, that I'm non-sparing. But if you're willing to change, she gives you a chance. So I'm willing to give you a chance. So I think my reputation preceded. So yeah, remember one thing. Everywhere we go, our reputations precede. And then they get reaffirmed or they get altered. In my case, it preceded. A, she's honest. I think the integrity was a very strong point, that she's not going to have nonsense here. No rice sold, no dal sold, no money's traded, no drugs mafia. So straight integrity. And secondly, truthfulness. I'm not going to hoist it. So truth, integrity was, I think, my strong points. That she's not here for. And third, genuineness. There's something called authenticity. There's no media inside. I'm not doing it for show. I'm doing it genuinely because this is the purpose of you being in jail, is that you will get out of here to be prepared and not come back. And I'm willing to give you everything. So I think what happened as a woman, I'd already served as a 20 years as leadership in police. Don't you remember the traffic police times?
Yeah.
That was 1982. I came to the prison in 1993. 1982, I had no resources. And how we turned around the traffic management for 9th Asian Games as a 30-year-old girl, as a 32-year-old woman. I had no resources. We generated resources. Do you know what? The entire Delhi had only one DCP traffic at that time. Only one. Only one. After me was only a DSP traffic. The entire Delhi. So Delhi in areas not expanded.
Yeah.
And the 9th Asian Games had 19 stadiums where country came on it with very resources. I generated every NCC cadet, every NSS cadet to become a traffic volunteer because I didn't have more manpower. I did the same thing in prison. I brought all NGOs possible inside the prison to educate 10,000 prisoners every day without a single budget, without a single penny. In fact, we created a model of prison management anywhere in the world where you need only the community. You don't need money. You need people. You don't need budgets. You need reform programs. You don't need money. Retired teachers, NGOs, community welfare. I evolved a model called 3C: collective, corrective, community-based.
Right.
Panchayats inside, NGOs from outside. Collective because they're all working together. Corrective was the goal. So there was a 3C holistic model which got evolved from vulture culture. When I inherited, it was vulture culture. Vulture would come only if it's dead body. There was no vulture when after that. No riot, no dead body. It was collective. You all play a responsible role. It's a township. And in a township, you are a citizen of this ashram. So when you start saying ashram, everybody has a role to play.
Wow. And so you came to solutions. You had budgetary challenges. You did not have any resources, but you always looked at solutions, and you looked at solutions yourself rather than going to your supervisors or so on and so forth. You worked towards just driving consensus and bringing stakeholders on board. I want to ask you the importance of mentors and gurus in your journey, right? How did you seek them out? What did you seek them out for? Because I'm asking this question because very often we do not build mentor-mentee relationships, and since we're speaking to a very young audience, I feel that this is an important aspect that needs to be highlighted in one's journey, on the importance of gurus and mentors. How do you seek them out? What do you seek them out for?
Shweta, in public service, in our services, there's no time for mentors to invest. There's no time. We are very, very overworked. Seniors are very stressed out and normally very overworked. They have no time to groom youngsters. Youngsters are by and large left on their own. So it's a youngster's choice how much he or she wants to self-groom. Barring one or two, like Mr. Gautam Kaul or Mr. Ved Marwa, when I started my service, I think I did not have any other in my formative years. I had to fend for myself. So in government service, I've noticed the old days are gone. When old days, they had this kind of grooming. Now with the kind of stressful, everybody's under so much pressure of delivering, and youngsters are by and large left on their own. So the mentorship comes back to you, on you. What do you want to learn? How much you want to learn? From which sources you want to learn? And whether you want to keep your integrity intact, whether you want to learn leadership by observing. So it's up to you. You observe the good and the bad, the ugly. It's for you to choose. And tempted by the good, the bad, the ugly. I got tempted by good. Of most Mr. Gautam Kaul and Mr. Ved Marwa. I got tempted by that. J.N. Chaturvedi was another wonderful commissioner. So some of them were wonderful people. So I looked at them and acquired their qualities. I also saw the bad and I rejected it rather than getting influenced by it. So I think we all make our choices with the backgrounds we come with. We're already wired up. It's up to us how we want to rewire. Wiring is already complete when you come as a probationer. Your habits are formed, your needs are formed, your attitudes and reading habits, your punctualities, your personalities formed. You're only learning professional skills. And that's up to you. Where do you want to go and learn from? For me, gurus were inspectors of police, sub-inspectors of police who were good at investigation. I would sit with them and learn investigation from them because they had the time and they were willing to teach a senior. They loved it that a senior is coming, even though I was young, I just started service. They loved the fact that a young ASP is coming to us, giving us the respect. So if you ask me who were my gurus were my learned, experienced juniors.
Interesting.
In the service.
No, you can always learn from your peers, your colleagues, people who work with you in your team. Very valuable insight over there. I want to ask you, what advice would you like to give to your 18-year-old self?
But today, if I would give an advice to an 18-year-old, I would say, be a good reader. Keep reading. Keep reading inspiration. Keep reading spirituality. Be a reader. Do not lose any single day of reading, because that will give you self-education and others' experience. You can minimize your mistakes. You can read leadership books. You can read spirituality. It keeps you humanized. And leadership, administration, keep reading as biographies, but plus information technology. Be a master at that. be very good, be a master in information technology, because then the whole world is with you. When you are good in IT and you're a good reader, I think you are self-reliant. So if I were an 18-year-old girl while playing tennis, I would do that. I was a reader even at that time. I was an honor student, English honor student, but I would then have become a master in information technology to run my own computer, edit my own videos, design them, add voice to them, etc. I would be design my own programs. I would have loved to be more comfortable with my computer rather than just use it for writing.
Okay. And anything that you have read recently that you feel has really shaped your worldview or shaped your view, just generally, just shaped you as an individual in recent times?
My no day goes without morning nutritious reading. No day goes without it. Actually, I start with the speaking tree columns in Economic Times and in speaking in the Times of India. They are your rivals, but yeah, I read a lot of these kinds of columns. But I have a very interesting series of books which I would recommend to anybody who's watching. And I have one sample of that here. I've read about 10 of these series, and these are series in all. This is Tom Butler Bow Down. This is a series of 50 classics in all subjects: psychology, prosperity, success, economics, political science, spirituality, everything. And this is gifted to me by my friend called Pawan Chaudhary, who's also an author of books. Pawan gave me a set. I didn't stop it. Every time they come up with a new one, I read this. So these are my go-to books, and these are classics. And it's just, each classic is just 4.5 pages. So that means every day you can read classic, author, psychologist, economics, prosperity, and of course, spirituality remains. And this is my favorite book on Upanishads.
By whom?
By M, Mr. M, Sri M.
Okay.
I love reading my own Vedas and spiritual. In fact, I keep reading. I'm these days listening to Priyavardhana. You know that Divya, who is constantly talking about Vedanta?
Yes, absolutely.
I just love listening to that young lady. So for me, it's both ways. It's nutrition. I take everyday spiritual nutrition, and I every day take leadership and management nutrition. Without these two going into, the day is not complete. So I would advise youngsters, get into both kinds of readings, which enhances your professional and management skill and personal skill, and also keeps you very down to earth and grateful for what you have, which is spirituality.
Very important. My last question before I go on to some audience questions as well. What is your life theory? I attended a program recently at the Harvard Kennedy School, and there one of my favorite lectures was this class on happiness, where the professor spoke about 4 deposit boxes that you have in your life: friends, family, work, and spirituality. And he said, make sure that you deposit something in those deposit boxes every day. So I want to ask you, what's your life theory, and how do you cope with stress?
I start my morning with a workout. It prepares me for the rest of the day. The morning workout is a mixture of yoga and fitness, the treadmill, the cross trainer, right? And the yoga mat. That sets my tone for the day. But along with it, I also listen sometimes to very interesting YouTubes. I listen to Indra Nooyi. I'm very fond of her leadership style. And her style almost goes along with mine, because she also turned around PepsiCo with performance with purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And mine was always looking for the purpose of every assignment I got. And she coined performance with purpose. And for me is, wherever I'm going, what is the purpose of this assignment? And to what extent should I expand it? So what I do is, that's exactly what she also did. She expanded PepsiCo to nutritious products. I expanded my purpose, my work, to co-opting and collaborating wherever resources were inadequate, and giving a meaning to the whole thing. So I think that's where I love listening to her.
Fabulous. All right, there are a whole host of questions coming in. We have a question. Somewhat, of course, there are people gushing over you, and there's somebody who has asked, "How was your experience as LG of Puducherry? How did you respond to all the criticism from politicians?"
Look, as LG of Puducherry, I am documenting a book, Shweta. I will offer to this country what is good administration, what can be good administration, and what is it that you need good administration. My country has all the resources. My country only needs leadership. My country needs only right political leadership. My country, wherever you have the right kind of chief minister, things change. But where you do not have the right kind of chief minister, it's a challenge.
Mhm.
And now the challenge falls on bureaucracy. And the challenge actually fell on my shoulders and my bureaucracy. How do we rescue Puducherry from getting into a debt trap? How do we see that every penny goes to the people where it's meant for? How do Puducherry, without money in the budget, becomes water rich? How does the bureaucracy deliver despite threats of being bullied? I think my answer is simple. My experience as Lieutenant Governor of Puducherry is a state which has a visionary chief minister, has integrity, a purpose, and believes in rule of law. That state will prosper because the bureaucracy will deliver. But where the chief minister has doubtful integrity, has intentions which are suspect, and is saying something else and doing something else, that state will only be in fits and starts, and it will only be dependent on freebies, not self-reliance. So the book will tell you for posterity that what is good, what can be good administration against all odds. Because we in Puducherry delivered against odds. I have a book called 1000 Days of Working Against Odds. I think it's probably on the Kindle. On Rajnivas website. By the way, this book is on Rajnivas website. If anybody's interested, go to Rajnivas website and access this book, Against All, Despite Odds, Against All Odds, 1000 Days. I documented this when I finished 1000 days as administrator of Puducherry. It is an eye-opener. Go and see it. It's based on evidence.
Lovely. I would recommend everyone to log on and access the booklet. There is another question. Where do you see the future of Indian bureaucracy, and what qualities a future young aspirant should have?
Look, the quality which an aspirant should have, number one, that remain trustworthy and remain courageous. If you're remaining trustworthy and remaining courageous, you will be able to tide over. But if you're not trustworthy and you're not courageous, you will be a doormat. You will be used by unethical vested interests. But if you are trustworthy, people will respect you. And if you have the courage, you will fight against it. But if you're not trustworthy and you don't have the courage of your convictions, then you are a glorified bureaucrat doormat.
So courage and self-belief. All right, I think we've run out of time, ma'am, but as always, it was such a pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much. I hand it over back to Yagya.
Yes. So we feel really honored to host you, ma'am. We all have heard and read a lot about you, but listening to you live, talking about your life, your journey, your experiences and challenges was a different experience altogether. Ma'am, you're an example of women empowerment and an inspiration to millions of girls out there who dare to dream big and take upon themselves the onus of bringing about a positive change in the way things work in the society. We also want to extend our thanks to Ms. Shweta Punj for taking out your time from your busy schedule and joining us and moderating this session for us. Thank you so much, both of you. We're really honored.
Thank you for inviting me.
Ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.